Alright everyone, so I've been rocking this tape measure for a few months now. I guess technically going on 8 months I've been using this tape measure daily. And I finally reached its failure point, so I think it's time we finally should do a review on it. Because this tape measure I was kind of skeptical about, didn't know if I would love it, didn't know if I would hate it. And so that's what we're going to go over. And we're going to be sort of comparing this, not a direct comparison, but we're going to be comparing it against just like a Stanley Fat Max. So I got a couple different Fat Maxes here, and Fat Max is kind of just like the gold standard for tape measures. Everybody's got a Fat Max, everybody's used them, they've handled them. We're just going to be comparing some things to the Fat Max, just to kind of give you an idea of where this Klein tape kind of falls. So first thing we're going to go over is what actually failed on it. So what failed was the tape itself. And what failed is right here at 24. You can see my blade is starting to tear. That is no bueno. Number one, if you've ever had a tear in a tape measure, as soon as I go to close this and I have my finger there, I'm slicing my finger right open. It's just kind of the nature of it. It's just what happens. I don't know if you've ever had a tear in your tape measure, but if you get a good enough tear, it will cut your finger open pretty good. And they can get kind of sharp. I also have another tear up here as well. So I guess that's kind of a good place to start, is the actual tape itself, the blade of the tape measure. So it comes with this sort of a mat. I think it's a nylon coating that they put on there, which is a totally different type of coating than what is on a Fat Max. This is kind of like a glossy, it's almost like you can kind of see where it starts to peel at the edges. It's like it's a thin glossy plastic. It might be some sort of a vinyl. It's kind of like the Klein is, but it's a different type of coating. It's a little bit glossier and smoother. On the Klein, you can even hear it. It's kind of a matte finish. It kind of seems like it's a thicker coating, but it does wear off. So you can see my numbers all look crystal clear. But if we go to the back, you can kind of see the edges where you're starting to get that shine. So let's get you in close here. You can kind of see how this tape measure is wearing. Like I said, this is after 8 months of daily use. So a long time, but not a terribly long time. Not even an entire year have I been using this tape measure daily. There, right there is that chip, or that tear. And that's just going to tear right open one of these days. So, you know, is it any better or worse than a Fat Max? I don't know. Let's take a look at my Fat Max. I mean, you can kind of see this Fat Max is a little bit older than this one. This one is starting to wear. I would say that this is better. I have had it for less time, but if you look at where the wear is, if you look at the location of the wear on the blade, here it's kind of just on the edges. I don't have much in the center where the actual numbers are that you're going to be reading. You know, if this Stanley had numbers on the back of it, well, they would have been gone at this point. I mean, we have wear kind of in the center of this, so the location of the wearing is kind of important here. If I were to have numbers on the back here, you wouldn't be able to read these with the coating that they have. Versus this tape, I can read them just fine after 8 months. Eventually, this might get worse. I don't know, because I'm going to retire this tape measure anyway because of that tear that's in the tape. But over time, this might get worse. I guess you can see my lettering is starting to fade here a little bit. So it's hard to say if it's better or worse than a Fat Max. I wouldn't say it's any worse. Maybe slightly better. Maybe slightly better. I would definitely not say that it's worse, though. It is not worse. So that's kind of the blade. That's kind of all I have to say about it. The numbers are easy to read. You know, whatever. I mean, the blade is crinkled at the end. I mean, your first few inches, your first 2 feet of a tape measure are what get used the most. And, I mean, yeah, this blade is in kind of rough shape compared to the Stanley. The Stanley is definitely a little bit more flexible. It's not as, kinked as this is. This does have a thicker blade, but I think that almost makes it more prone to kinking, makes it less flexible, possibly. Overall, I mean, I'm happy with the blade, though. I mean, this is daily hard construction to use. I mean, tools are gonna fail. Nothing is gonna last forever. But I'm somewhat happy with how long it has lasted. I'm not extremely ecstatic, but I'm not upset about it. I think it's sort of reasonable. Almost a year. I probably could squeeze a year out of this if I wanted to. But that's the blade. Let's go ahead on to the tip, because that's kind of another important part, because this kind of is their double hook design. So it has that hook on the bottom, and then it has that hook on the top. I do like having both of the hooks. I do think their hooks, for whatever reason, are a little bit flimsy. 2 times now I have had this bottom hook bend on me, and I've had to take it over to a vise and with a hammer kind of beat it back flat. I've never had that happen with a Fat Max. I only have 2 Fat Maxes here, but I have 4 Fat Max tape measures, and I have not had the tips bend on me the way that this Klein one has. Not a huge deal. I mean, I'm not doing precision measurements with this, okay? I mean, if you want to get precise, you're not even using the end of the tape. You're taking your measurement from 10 on. I mean, you're taking your measurement flat with the tape itself. You're not hooking anything if you want to get precise. But just kind of a note, I have bent this a couple times and had to straighten it back out. Not a huge deal, but none of my Fat Max tape measures have done that. So something to think about. The other thing is the magnet. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the magnet. It's not super strong. It's strong enough, I suppose. There are times where I do wish it was stronger, but at the same time, you almost don't want that to be as strong as you think you might want it to be. You almost want it to be a little bit weak, because it's not necessarily there to hold a bunch of weight. It just helps you assist in measuring things by yourself. So if I had this on a piece of, if I had this on building steel and I want to pull my tape out, if you pull this too fast, yeah, this magnet is going to pop off. So you do have to be a little bit gentle with it. If I stick it on the edge, I have to kind of pull this out real slowly in order for that magnet not to pop off the steel, which is okay. I mean, it's strong enough to pick screws up off the floor, up on a ladder. Another reason I love this tape, because of the magnetic tip. You're up on a ladder, you're up on a lift, you drop your screw. Damn it, I need to get down and get that screw. Oh, no problem. Fish your tape down there, and then bring it back up. You don't have to get off your ladder to go down and get material that you dropped. I have picked up my dogs with these. Actually, just the other day, I dropped my dogs out of a lift, and I picked them up with this tape measure. It took me a couple tries because it kept falling. What is going on with the camera? It took me a couple tries because it kept falling because the magnet's not super strong. but we may do anyway. So I think it's a good strength. The only thing about the magnetic tip, like I said, some people love them, some people hate them. I have a love-hate relationship because I love what I can do with it, but I hate the fact that the magnet gets just gunked up with shit. Just terrible. I mean, it's all day I'm constantly wiping this thing off because I get metal shavings and, you know, concrete dust that's got a little bit of ferrous metal in it that gets stuck on the end of this. It is super annoying. The other thing too is it's kind of stiffened up. You know, tapes are supposed to have that little bit of play in the rivets, you know, depending on if you're pushing or pulling a measurement. Bottom one still has some play in it, but this top hook is, it's solid, and that's just because of, if we take a look closely here, I might as well show you. You can kind of see all that shit that's just caked in there. So this does not move anymore. Bottom one does move, top one doesn't move. Like I said, it's okay. You know, my measurements aren't that precise. If I'm within a 16th, you know, we're all right. But, you know, if I'm trying to get more precise, I'm not going to be using this tape measure like a normal tape measure anyway. I digress. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, magnet, good. It's a good thing. Great thing about this tape. I like the magnet. All right, so the next thing is the lock. The lock on this thing is absolutely amazing. This is probably, of all the tapes that I've had, this is probably the best lock of all of them. No matter what length you're out to, you know, if I have this out at 15 feet and I put that lock on, it's going to be locked. It's not moving. Unlike other tape measures, a lot of my Fat Maxes, as soon as I get them out to 15 feet or 16 feet or whatever, and I put that lock down, it doesn't have the power to hold that tape out. This lock works amazing. You can hear it's got that nice click down and then unlock, lock, and then, you know, it's locked. The other thing too is it has this button on the bottom. Instead of having to use the brake with your finger like this, which is how you get yourself caught on the tears in the tape, you can use the bottom as a brake. And I actually like that. I didn't know if I'd like that or not, but I've gotten used to it. These tapes, I always just use my fingers as a brake. But I've come to like this bottom brake, and it works pretty good. The clip works good. No complaints there. Haven't had this clip loosen up. Both of these Stanleys, these clips loosen up over time, and you have to retighten the screws. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's the type of plastic that they're getting threaded into or what. The screws come undone. This screw does not come undone. What else can we talk about? The durability. Just in general. I drop this thing almost daily just because I am freaking Butterfingers. I drop this thing almost daily and nothing. This thing is indestructible. Other than the blade, okay, the casing of this tape measure is indestructible. This thing gets dropped from 30 feet once a week, and it is perfectly fine. You can kind of see that this rubber overmolding is starting to tear off a little bit, but you know, who cares? It's not a big deal. But it hasn't cracked, it hasn't split open or anything. That's really what matters is the tape has stayed together in one piece. So it's done really good. Last but not least, we've gone over all that. Let's talk about my favorite part about this tape measure, and probably why I will never get rid of it. Or if I get a new tape, which I probably will because of the tear in the tape, I will probably get the same one. And that is all of the reference information that is on the back of this tape measure. Come on, camera, what are you doing? All of the reference information that is on the back of this. So you have conduit multipliers and shrink, and then you have your three-phase table. I mean, this alone, you know, your degree multipliers for conduit, this is absolutely amazing. Now, you know, I only use 30 degree anyway, and I know that my multiplier is 2, or I only use 45, and I know my multiplier is 1.4, but I don't know all my shrinks, and I don't know my multipliers for 10, 15, and 22.5. I just don't. I don't use those numbers enough to have them memorized. So for those numbers that I don't know, instead of having to go somewhere, you know, instead of having to pull out my phone or, you know, pull out my Uglies book or something, I don't even know if the Uglies book has that information in it, but instead of going and looking for that information, I can just pull this off my hip, open it up. Oh, yeah, okay, 22.5, that's 2.6 multiplier. It's just that simple. Phase table, I don't know. I don't really use it. It's there. It's cool. But I don't really use it. I just don't. But this information here for conduit bending, this information is invaluable. Absolutely love this. This is my favorite part about this tape, and probably one of the reasons I'll never get rid of it. And if this tape does break, I will probably cut this piece out and make like a little keychain out of it, just because I think that information is just awesome, and I love the way it's laid out. Anyway, that was a little bit of a ramble. But that's the Klein tape. Do I think it's better than a Stanley? Yes, I do. I personally do think it is better than a Stanley FatMax. And most of that is just due to the type of work that I do. If you couldn't find out already, I'm an electrician. I do commercial work, and I don't know. I have used both this 16-foot, and I've used this 16-foot. I used this for a couple months, and I've been using this for about 8 months now, and I prefer the Klein. I don't know if it's just because of that information on the back, or just the way it feels in my hand, magnetic tip. You know, I like the way the numbers read. I think it's a great tape. And you can see 8 months of use. I'll just kind of give you a little bit of a once-over so you can kind of see. I mean, this is 8 months of daily use. So you kind of make your own conclusion based off of this, if you think it's held up or not. Me personally, I think it's done great for what it is, and I think it's time that it would be replaced. And all I can say is I will likely replace it with the same exact tape. So, anyway, that's going to be it for the 16-foot tape measure by Klein, and I will see you in the next one.